Stop.
Now, you guys have been here with me before, but this is the new studio. What do you think?
We love it.
Yeah.
And I was telling them that green room is awesome. It is so pretty in here.
You wonder where she gets her good looks. You might recognize the gentleman there in the green shirt. We call him at Thanksgiving El Padre.
Yes, those are my parents right there, guys. They only come to watch me at work when you guys are here. So.
Well, I heard us and Matthew McConaughey. They sneak that one in. Hey, make sure that you read her inscription in the book.
Gave me a little book.
Specific shout out to you, Mama.
That's what we're here to talk about. Chip Gaines wrote a book, everybody. Capital Gains.
I didn't mean to get there that quickly. We don't have to jump in too early.
No, of course we do. Now, you guys released a book last year, The Magnolia Story, together. Did that kind of inspire you to think of a new idea and do a book on your own? And I'm sure Joanna helped you along the way.
I honestly, anytime she and I get together in that context, as I was reading the her portion, I doze off a bit. You kind of have to, it's like a labor.
Definitely not as
you
exciting.
have to really work through the literature. So as I was experiencing that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell just my side of the story, just my portion of the equation. So, which was captivating. I mean, as I wrote it, I was just like, this guy. I mean, it's like the most. What's the guy's
most interesting?
Yes,
That is his goal.
I think I should put my name in the hat.
Well, you sure do look like the most interesting man in the world.
Look at that.
Raise your hand if you love this book cover, and be completely honest. I swear to you, I love constructive criticism.
I love it.
3 people. Okay, well.
That's how it was at the office.
That's about how it was. I literally got outvoted like 64-2, which was another picture, to 1, which was that picture with my one little hand scribbled vote on the option. Yeah.
Because you have a story about picking this cover in particular, because you did a whole photo shoot, and so talk to us about it. What happened? Why didn't you like any of the more posy,
Well, so this moment was actually on the way to the actual photo shoot. So where the photographer had everything set up, he had the lights, he had all the screens, everything. And this was Chip kind of on a 4-wheeler on the way there. His hair hadn't been messed with yet. Obviously, he was wearing his dirty hat on backwards. But our photographer friend was in the vehicle with him and said, hey, let me start, kind of practicing. Let me start taking some pictures. And when they all started coming out, somehow this one surfaced. And Chip thought, one of the reasons why he really loved it, you see a scar. And that's a big story in the book about the scar, that moment for Chip. But I think he just loved how raw it was. Chip isn't really a polished guy. The idea of a
The way
photo.
you said that kind of sounded mean. You didn't mean it.
You're polished today.
Because
Very
Guys,
polished.
look at Chip. He's really dressed up.
I
You're looking
love
suave.
Chip in a suit.
Thank you, Kaylee. Kaylee in the background.
So
really,
when he
really
saw
clapping.
this, I think to him it was like instinctively, he said, this is the real me, and this is what I want out there. I don't want the one where I'm posing and everything's just set up perfect. And that's what I love about him. Yeah. It's the raw Chip.
Yep. We all love the raw Chip,
We
right?
do.
Although, Chip, I do love the hair, though. You really look great.
Thank you.
Because usually when you're here, you're in your boots and your
Wrangler.
which you love too.
Yeah,
It
was fascinating. So season 5, which is coming out here in November, will take us into beginning to middle of end of next year. I kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think you've seen the pretty consistent me, and I thought, what if I grew my beard out a little bit, which I'd never done, never grown my beard out ever in my entire life. This is very, it surprises me when I see myself in that condition, because I didn't realize I could pull that off like that. It's that much handsomeness and be so gruff and awful to look at simultaneously. So I've always had these 5 o'clock shadows. I'm not really clean shaven, but I'm not a bearded guy. But my hair, I grew it out once when I was a little bit younger, probably like maybe early college, middle college, something like that. And I thought, that'd be fun. What if I kind of went for this? And so I got the crew together. We've got a fairly small crew as far as the industry is concerned, but to us, it's enormous because there's 15 or 20 people all the time, doing this thing. Yeah, of course, it's sort of like this. I mean, this looks enormous to me, but, you know, big, small, whatever. Okay, so anyways, I'm interviewing these folks. I'm like, do you guys think I should do it? Should I not? And I got Joe involved, and I feel like there were a couple of more people who were like, should I go for it? Because there's no turning back. I mean, once you decide we're doing this for season 5, you make the commitment, and the entire season, you've got to be, for continuity's sake, whatever in the world that means, you've got to be consistent in that. So I was like, I'm cool with it. I said, let's go for it. And Joe and the entire crew unanimously vote for me to go for it. You, right? Okay. And so I couldn't believe it. I thought she was going to say no. I thought a few people were going to say don't do it. And then I was going to back off, and that was going to be the end of it. Well, as I went into this season, the book came out. So God bless America, that's the cover of my book.
Yes.
My mom is like, why do I hate this book cover? Why do none of my friends want to buy this book? I mean, this is awful. What in the world were you thinking? And all these once-in-a-lifetime experiences sort of started falling into place. And I was like, well, that's what you get for taking a chance like that. You know, sometimes it bites you in the butt.
Hey, it's the beard. The beard is maybe a good luck charm for Chip, huh? Do you like the beard?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm used to it. So now when he shaves, I think it's going to be weird. Yeah.
It's really interesting when you are happily married, beautiful wife, 4 beautiful kids. So big picture, everything's great back at the home front. Very happy people. But anytime you go to kiss your beautiful wife and she gives you a side hug instead, you know, she doesn't really love the beard. I'd like to put that out there.
Well, I have to say, you guys seem very happy, and don't listen to all those rumors that are going around, guys. Look at these two. You know, it has to be hard to have all the attention and the show, and I think you guys are making a great decision, so good for you. And this book...
Great decision because you were a bit tired of us at this point. You were kind of teetering.
I'm just exhausted. Every year I have to interview these two guys, and it is just exhausting. Not fun at all. This book is so great. And it's so interesting to know all the little things that you have done along the way to be where you are, and how you even helped Joanna follow her dreams in you know, this industry. Talk about, you know, you do mention failure and how you use failure as kind of a teaching lesson throughout your career. Can you talk about that a little bit and what you talk about in the book?
Yeah, I've always been one of these glass half full type guys. So in pessimist's defense, you know, there are really 2 sides to look at this deal. There's not a right and a wrong per se. So to qualify, I see things optimistically, I see things half full. But in the same token, I feel like just in general, as a society, we view failure in such an odd way from my perspective. And I think failure, it's almost like the first time you ever tried a math equation or the first time you ever tried to read. I mean, we learned early that it's okay to make mistakes and that there's failures along the way, but somehow as adults, we kind of get convinced that when you fail, you've lost. When you fail, you should never do that again. It's like the worst case scenario. And I try to encourage people in the book, and Joe is always so courteous to kind of recall times in our own relationship to where I encouraged her. I mean, I'm like, you know, I've got 2 daughters and 2 sons, and, you know, I'm like the biggest cheerleader for these girls because I sincerely believe you women have the opportunity of a lifetime. Things that our moms and our grandmothers would have died for, you girls have the opportunity to step into that. I mean, you know, Hillary Clinton running for, you know, president of the United States this past election. I mean, you know, just variables that weren't even imaginable 50 years ago. So all that to say, it's like I really want to encourage people of all walks and all different shapes and sizes to go for it. You know, I feel like as a society, so few people get to literally fulfill their dreams, to live their what I would consider or refer to as your best self, your best life. And I think that so few of us hold back the song that we should have written, the book that we could have written, the job opportunity that we decided not to because it was the right thing to do, quote unquote. And I just feel like as a country, we're worse off for so few people taking those big leaps of faith. And I think if we'd all all try a little harder. And, you know, it's not for everybody. It's sincerely not for everybody. So I'm not encouraging every person literally to go out and do these dramatic things, but the people that feel like they can't sleep at night if they don't. If they didn't, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. You know, it's go for it. You know, even if it doesn't work out the way you'd hoped it would, the lessons you learn, even in those failures, even in the major disappointments for me, have sometimes been the most valuable experiences of my entire life.
Try and try again. That was very inspirational, Chip.
Oh,
you got 9 minutes left, Chip.
Totally
Anything
exhausted.
else?
Now, Joanna, how long did that take for you to teach that to him?
I'm sorry. Does anybody have a cigarette?
Oh.
I am shot.
But for you, you know, you met Chip when he was starting out his business, and then you went away, I read in the book, to study Spanish. And you left Joanna in charge of the business, and it was a tricky time because it was just starting out. And can you talk about that and how kind of Chip's attitude, how, as he just explained, kind of pushed you to keep going?
Right. I think from early on, you know, I always was the play it safe girl, and Chip was kind of the risk. He loved risk. Yeah. I was going to say risk averse. So opposite of that. And so I was terrified of this kind of stuff. And just even in dating him, I was thinking, wow, if we ever got married, I'd have to actually do this stuff with him. But then 6 months into it, a year into it, it was like kind of one of those things where when you'd see the risk, but then the reward on the other side, you were like, hey, I've been missing out. I mean, this is kind of a fun way to live life. And so for me, I've got to have that firsthand experience as him literally as my biggest cheerleader, coach, but then I see him do this with everyone else around us, our friends, family. He's always the one encouraging people, pushing them to kind of move past fear and failure. Because for me, that was the thing. That's what stopped me is I don't want to fail and, you know, what if? And Chip was like, well, what if? Then what? You get back up and you learn from that and you get better. Sure. And so when that's the worst case scenario, it really encourages, I think, a lot of people to kind of go for your dreams, take those risks. So it's been a fun journey to kind of see just Chip, you know, when we were first dating, he had 3 or 4 businesses. I mean, nothing scared the guy. You know,
sadly, none of these businesses made any money at all.
I didn't know that at the time.
I called them businesses, but looking back, they were more like not-for-profits. They were very, very complicated. You know, they were in a niche market that nobody had ever heard of. Well, long story short, she just thought, oh, if you're a business owner, you were making boatloads of money. And so I let her believe that for, unfortunately, right up until the after I do part. And she was like, what, why are the lights off? Why? I was like, I haven't paid these bills for. I'm surprised that they've been on for this long. Honestly, they've been very gracious with me at the electric company.
You're like, but you already said I do, so now we're stuck together. Like, sorry, can you help me out? And then you guys, you bought Magnolia at the store, but then you ended up having children, and you felt like you were kind of torn between work and the kids. But then you went back to it, as we've seen, and now you guys are such big, successful business owners. Talk about that moment when you had to kind of give up the shop and how you ended up getting back there.
I would say that I would have never even opened the store if it wasn't for Chip. The idea that he said, what are your dreams? And I told him I'd love to own my own business one day. And a month later, I was owning my own business because he was like, well, what are you waiting for? So he pushed me.
It was a bit sad in that way. Let me jump in real quick. She had this whole book, a notebook full of businesses that she would hypothetically start one day. And I was like, babe, what is going on? I've never even heard of anything like this. In the Gaines family, where I came from, you thought of a business idea, you started it, and then when it failed, you wrote down the reasons that it didn't make it in this book. You know, it's obvious. She went and wrote down all these concepts in advance and then thought about starting the business like later. And it turns out, I learned later that was called a business plan. But, you know, neither here nor there. I was pretty fascinated by this woman's elaborate thought process, but to no avail. You know, she actually had not started any of these deals. Yeah. So I told her, I said, pick one of those and you better get after it.
So our first year of marriage, that first month, we were renovating the shop and our first home together. So we were open 2 or 3 years, and that's really where I just kind of gained this passion for design, helping people in their homes. And then, you know, a couple babies later, I just felt like it was time to regroup, stay home, and kind of focus on our growing family. And then, I think 2013, so years later, now all of our kids were in school, we drove by this lot that had 2 huge abandoned silos. There's this old grain mill, and drove by it, and there was something in me that kept saying, turn around. So when I turned around, I literally got out of the car and stood there and started seeing this kind of business play out, which was a big dream. It was moving our retail there, food trucks, you name it, just everything out there, almost like this big theme park for adults who love really pretty things for their home. I don't know. And so when I brought Chip by there, he was thinking, maybe I had lost my mind now, which I had done this now for 11, 12 years and was on this side of it.
Our first 3 flip homes, literally, and I mean, she never got out of this. I would buy a flip, she would come, she would bawl her eyes out, we would sell the flips, we'd make a little bit of money. And so you'd think after a couple of these, you'd be like, okay, well, I don't have to cry at the beginning. I mean, this is going to work. The 3rd one, cry. 5th one, cry.
They were bad.
I remember when she drove me by those silos and I cried like a baby. I was like, oh, this is going to bankrupt us for sure. There's no chance that this is going to work.
But in all honesty, he's the one that, I started thinking when I stood there, I was really passionate. I was excited about it. Then the more I start thinking about it, the more I'm like, I don't want to take that risk. And that's where, of course, he jumps in and says, let's go for it. And now, last weekend we just celebrated 3 years there. Just seeing people come from all over.
That's awesome.
To enjoy it is literally a dream come true.
How many people do you guys have at the silos weekly? Like I've seen pictures and it's churning over there.
Y'all won't believe this. Let's do a little trivia pursuit. We started with under 20 employees in 2012, 2013 with the retail stuff. Well, let's go all the way back to when we started at the very beginning, which 03. There you go. That's what I was trying to remember. So we started with just under 20 employees, 2003. How many employees do we employ in Waco, Texas with the Magnolia organization today? Ballpark. Throw something out. 80. No failure, no fear of failure. Just yell things. What'd you say? 100. 500 people at the employed by Magnolia, and then a number of people that come per week to the silos and experience, various facets. But ballpark per week, how many? Wow. Okay, 30. That's our goal. 30,000 people a week. So when you think about football stadiums and the amount of economic impact that these amazing places have, when you're talking about collegiate level, which is what I'm referring to, a decent stadium holds somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people. A big stadium like University of Michigan or Tennessee, University of Texas, back in our home state, about 100,000 people come to these things per week to watch these football games. And we're averaging somewhere in the ballpark of 30,000 people a week. The economic impact we've had on this beautiful town of ours has inspired us to no end.
How does that make you feel that you're not only following your dreams, but you're also allowing others to be a part of it? And you guys have really flipped Waco upside down, and it's now like a spot where everyone wants to go, right? On vacation. We all want to go to Waco.
Mom and Dad, have you two been to Waco yet? All right.
Yeah, you got to let us know when you come.
Absolutely.
I think for us, we really think it's a small part of what we're doing there. But when you see the community and the people that we know personally that are starting their own businesses, I think when you see, around the silos, all these other entrepreneurs, people taking risks around us, and I think that to me is a dream come true. That what our dream was here. Hopefully that's helping others kind of roll with that, and just seeing how Waco is, Waco's always had it. That's why we've been there. That's why we decided we never wanted to leave. Waco is just an amazing community, and I just think it's time to shine.
Yeah. So when you guys leave that community and you come someplace like New York City, is it overwhelming for you to I've seen you guys on billboards, and how does it feel when you leave Waco, which is your home where everyone kind of knows you?
We do feel like we're in a bubble.
Yeah.
But we come here and you just leave super inspired. When I lived here in 2000, just took mental notes of the architecture here, the type of boutiques. That's all the stuff that really inspired me for my own store. So every time I come here, I kind of take it as hey, this is a fun way to just get inspired, get outside the bubble, see what else is going on. But there's something about New York that I'll always love. I love it here.
But just to answer your question, when we see ourselves on a billboard or today we were walking through basically like a terminal. It felt like an airport, but it was in a commercial building of sorts, but it had this little magazine shop, and there we are on the cover of People, and we're like, what in the world is going on?
I feel like it's us.
I mean,
We're just normal
Yeah.
Waco people.
5 years later, we're still like the nerdiest
Yeah.
couple in the world.
I'm
Every
like,
time we see
walk
something, we're like,
away.
what?
Yeah.
He wants to take a picture by it. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, let's keep going.
This paparazzi guy came up to us outside this building, and literally, you guys, I mean, they have these folks. Anyway, long story short, security people that are trained professionals. I mean, they're trained Navy SEAL professionals. And this gentleman comes up to me, he's like, Mr. Gaines, I need you to do these certain things immediately, or else your life is in imminent danger. And I was like, what? Look, it's that guy's with TMZ.
Yeah.
What's up?
We're so opposite.
I
He
go
talks
over and
to them.
I hug this guy. I'm like, bro, you know me? And he was like, Chip Gaines. He's got all these baseball card looking
He loves
photos
it. And
of
then
me.
I'm the one that looks down and charges straight ahead.
Joe's
And I look
out.
mad. I'm like, oh, that's going to be on every tabloid. Chip
exactly.
and Joe by herself. Here we go. I should have smiled.
So every time you see, every time you see Joe in these really pissed off moods,
They're
it's
gonna
always
think
me
it's
going
for
to
a
talk to the
reason.
paparazzi and her leaving in this
Yeah.
angry deal. Rarely is it
Shoot.
us the actual fight that they're
Yeah.
describing in the article.
I'm
It's
smiling on
really-
my way
She's
out.
really just mad at the paparazzi.
Joe's the one being safe, guys. When you see those photos, she's just getting out of there.
I'm
and
just trying
Chip's
to get
just,
from point A to B, and he's stopping and talking to everybody.
That paparazzi you've got out there, sweetest paparazzi in the country.
They are very kind. We give them what they want, you know? You got to give the paparazzi what they want.
Good folks.
Is it weird for you guys to talk like paparazzi
Yes.
and magazines and tabloids? And
so
did you ever
weird.
think that you would even be a part of that, being
I
on an
think that's
HG?
what's weird
Yeah.
about this whole situation. Just, we're with just this show and us just feeling it's time to kind of step back and take a breath. I think for people, they think there's got to be a reason for like, oh, something bad happened, and therefore that's why they're leaving the show. And, I think it's just hard for people to comprehend, no, we're just leaving because we just feel like it's right instinctively for us and our family. No negative reason. But I think when you start hearing all this rumor stuff, it's weird.
It sort of reminds me of when you decided to close down the shop. I mean, I think obviously we were not in a spotlight. There were only like 18 people that knew.
18 customers.
Yeah, 18 customers, and that included our aunt,
Yeah,
our
and my
grandmother.
mom
I mean,
and
it
your
got
mom.
Pretty slim pickings once you got outside the family. But I mean, for you to have made that decision, it just felt like it was the right decision for you at the time. And sometimes we don't let success govern our next move. That's just not been our thing. That's not what motivates us. More money, more fame, more thing. We didn't really want all of this stuff to begin with. Obviously, these are amazing side effects that we are so thankful for. So I want to be really clear. We would not trade this opportunity for anything in the world. We're honored because this opportunity has introduced us to each and every one of you. But, the idea of losing that is not so overpowering that we can't step back and go, is this the right thing for our family? Is this the right next decision for us as a company, as a business, as a family, however you want to quantify it. And for us, it became pretty evident that we really did need to take a step back. We've got 4 beautiful kids, one of which is a 12-year-old little boy who's getting into these, I didn't even know this was, I learned this term a few months back, but a tween. He's a tweener. I was like,
Maybe just a tween.
It sounded
Don't
completely
call him a
inappropriate and
tweener.
offensive. I was offended. But then when they explained it, I was like, I totally misunderstood you. Yes, it's a tween. But all that to say, it's like he needs us. I guarantee you that little boy needs us. And when we take a step back and we focus on the things that are the most important things in the world to Joe and I, we have just been proven time and time again that when we make those kind of faith decisions, if you will, leaps of faith, that it pays dividends for us in the future, whether that means literally money or literally some great thing, or if it's just Joe and I are going to make it until we're 80 and we're going to be on a rocking chair laughing about when people used to refer to us as just about to get a divorce or just about to do this thing or that thing. That's our goal. And if any of those rumors turned out to be accurate, it wouldn't be worth any amount of money to us in the world. If we fell apart 5 years from now, whether the rumors were valid or invalid, I would be like, well, all this stuff, what was it for? There was, it wasn't worth the trade-off. So we're just going to take a break. We're going to enjoy our family. We're going to step back, really focus on our businesses and what God has blessed us with, and then we just can't wait to see what the future holds. We really are extremely optimistic.
You guys are doing the right thing, and it proves that you guys are more about your family and the happiness of your children and your marriage than all the fame, and that's really nice to see. And we still have another season of Fixer Upper to watch, right? And reruns.
Yeah.
And when the kids are older, you're going to come here to New York, and you're going to redo Brooklyn Brownstones for all of us,
I would
right?
love that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's the
fair
spinoff.
enough.
I've
Sounds
planned
like a
it.
deal.
I'll produce it. Just have me on board. I do want to give these lovely people chances to ask some questions,
Yes, thank you all for putting up with us.
Hello. So now that the book is all done, I wanted to know, is there anything that you wish you had included?
Really good question.
I actually had two buddies that after this book had been written and they had no part in it, reached out to me and were like, bro, you told them about this story, right? You told them about this thing. And the one, I'm trying to think, is there one that comes to mind? I think about that football one, but there was one that my buddy tweeted or texted me the other day, and I'm literally drawing a blank. Long story short, there was a time when I was about a sophomore. There was a guy named Bo Schimbeckler in high school. Bo Schimbeckler.
Good name.
You know? No. Sorry, Bo Schimbeckler, famous football coach, and long story short, there you go. And we would literally listen to these things on cassette tapes. I'm a sophomore, so I'm like literally just lucky to be on the team. And the coach would put these tapes in, and it would talk about motivational variables from all these coaches, Lou Holtz, Bo Schimbeckler, guys like that. So here, Bo Schimbeckler was talking about creating your own destiny. And this kid on the team, we've all heard the stories, it's like he was nobody, he came, walked on, he ends up working his way up the food chain, he starts and changes Bo's life forever. Well, as I'm listening to that, I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. So the very next day, that was Thursday night, we would go and do these like meditation sessions. This was way cutting edge back when I was a sophomore in high school. And so the next day, which was Friday night lights, if you've ever seen the show, literally I was living that. Dallas-Fort Worth, 10,000 people at a stadium for a high school football game. Lights so bright, it was amazing. I was 16, didn't know head from a hole in the wall, wasn't even sure exactly how to play this game. I had a buddy who was a punt returner who's out on the field. I run my dumb butt out onto the field, tap this gentleman on the shoulder. Hey, coach wants you on the sidelines. Brock, have you heard this story? Hey, bro, coach wants you on the sideline. This kid hate punt returner. He told me that multiple times. I said, I'd give my right arm to, return a punt in front of all these people. I'm 16 years old. Let's do this. And so he runs off the field. I catch the ball. I stutter step awkwardly in place. Lucky. It was a miracle that I even caught this thing. I get completely annihilated. I run off the field, and there's a semicircle full of coaches who are grabbing me by the face mask, wearing me out. What are you doing? Who are you? I was like, second string punt returner, sir. What can I do to help? And he's like, you are never getting on this field again as long as I live. There was like one of the ladies, volleyball coaches, came out of the stands, grabs me, what are you doing? You are such a moron. So I left that out on accident. Looking back, I should have put that in there because it's representative of some of the risks that I'm talking about taking. You're beautiful.
You're better at meditation, Chip.
Yes. Meditation, more my
yoga.
thing. Actual football, not so much. Meditating about football, oh yeah, I'm the best.
A lot about baseball in here, which really touching.
Speaking of baseball, anybody New York Yankee fan?
Yeah.
Come on, I've become a believer.
Pinstripe pride.
There you go.
Hi, guys. So whenever I try to write something, I think the scariest part is starting because I'm just intimidated by that blank page. What was the hardest part for either of you guys for writing, and how do you get past it?
I love it. I can feel your anxiety. I can relate to that. But honestly, it's hard to believe because I'm soft-spoken, very quiet, very man of few words. But when I see the paper, I'm like, oh, needs to be filled up with awesome things that I can think of. And I want to encourage you to just, again, make the effort. I used to, and I don't know if this is part of the reason that this has become sort of a fascination of mine, but it's somewhere, I think it was junior college. I went to junior college, played a little baseball early, and I didn't have a great academic career other than the junior college experience that I'm referring to here. But I had this teacher who was like, you just got to write. It's almost like verbally processing things. It's like writer's block happens in those insecure moments where you're, touching the pen to your tongue going, come on, pen, come up with some stuff. And it's just, if you'll just start, and I tell this to Jo all the time. She wants to start with the perfect part. She wants to start with the end in mind. It's more like, hey, I'm Chip Gaines. This is awful. Nobody would read this. You'd have to be an idiot to read this or even consider read the, hey, this is, okay, all right, hold on. And then, so let the process kind of work itself out. Go for it, man. You can do it. I feel like you've got something in you. I don't want to overdo it, but when you get your first thing on paper, talk to my boy Brock Murphy. He's in the vest back there. Send it to him, and we'll see if we can't get you to first base. How about that?
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
I feel like that's probably how you feel when you see like an empty room and you kind of fill it with all of this design. That's how I picture it. Because I look at an empty room. Me and my husband just moved into a house, and my parents have been helping me out. But I look at it and I'm like, what? I got to go to Home Goods. Or a Target now, because you guys got a Target line too.
And in fairness, I mean, it's not like every person has every amazing gift and talent. When I'm like you, I mean, when I see a blank room, I'm like, where would you put the beanbag? I don't.
I think honing it in to, even for him, when we've written in the past, thinking, okay, if this is just for our children, we're just going to tell our children this story. I think when you start thinking, everyone's going to read this, and what are they going to think? You got to get past that. Same with design. When I'm working on someone's home, I'm just thinking about that family, not what is this going to look like on social media? What does this look like in the magazine? I'm working for this family, so I'm just taking it to that very concrete place and working from there so that I'm not worrying about the rest of the big stuff.
That's a good word.
Yeah, every room she does is on Pinterest, so it's pretty awesome.
No pressure. No pressure. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one more.
Hi, thank you for being here. When you're writing, do you ever get extremely emotional about recalling certain stories? And do you think that helps you when you're writing?
I don't know. I'm torn. I like to be emotional because for me, and I mean, I'm not really a crier in that sense of the emotional, but I like to go for it. I want to feel it. I want to be there. I want to experience it in every sense of the word. So I remember with the Magnolia Story, there were a few, when I did the audio book, that's what it was. So I was writing it, and I mean, obviously those were private emotions that I was experiencing, but I literally had a mic like this and the little, it's like the old school where the guy has the little filter in between he and the big microphone. Not a whole lot has advanced in the audiobook universe. It felt like 1950, literally. So I go into this deal. Here's this big mic. It was like a filter in between us, and the guy. So I start reading this book, and I literally got emotional in one of the chapters. I don't know if anybody heard the audio book, but yeah, sorry, but. If you could go out and get the audio book and whatnot. I cried like a baby in one of the chapters. You'll love it. But I just remember feeling it as if it was the first time. But to answer your question about does it help? I wonder. I like for people to feel like they have felt the real me and been with the real version of us, and that's important to us. And I'm convinced that that's why people enjoy the show. I think that's why people like this as opposed to some other thing. Of course, Joe's beautiful. Of course, the designs are great. I think all of these things play a part, but I think people sincerely believe in their hearts that these people are who they say they are, and I feel like that's extremely rare, and I'm not throwing any rocks. Who knows? I'm not even referring to anybody in my mind. I just think most people go on and are like, I'm going to be this person or I'm going to be that person. We just want to be us. And hopefully that translates to some extent through the television.
It definitely does. Hey, you have a big part of that show too. You're great on the show, especially when you eat all kinds of weird bugs and...
I mean, I don't want to go on and on, but I honestly think that I somehow...
He for sure carries the show.
I don't want to go on and on. But you know how Johnny Carson had his sidekick, McMahon, what was his
Ed
name?
McMahon.
Ed McMahon. Ed didn't get a whole lot of credit, big picture. And I feel like that sometimes. I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to, go on and on about myself like this, but I mean, it's extremely fun to look at.
They get it.
42 and a half, almost 43, fairly good shape.
Really good shape.
Really. That was just what I needed to. Thank you for I mean, you kind of caught yourself off guard.
You kidnapped Joanna, so there must be something good about you. I mean, you got our favorite girl right here. Amen. Well, guys, I love having you on the show. I can't wait for the new season to start next month, right? Then you got your Target line. I'm going down to Waco soon. I'm going to go to Magnolia, the Silos. And Chip's book is out now, guys, Capital Gains. Make sure to pick it up. Do you have an audiobook for this?
Yeah, I did an audio. I got teary-eyed one time in this. I can't remember exactly what chapter it was on the Magnolia story, but there was a particular chapter in the Capital Gains book to where, something about the way this experience played out in my life really, really touched my heart, and literally got a little teary-eyed. And it's always funny because I never know. You know, you get teary-eyed, you kind of work through it, and then you kind of push the big mic way with the filter in front of it. It was like, dude, sorry, we're probably gonna have to redo this. And the guy's sitting there going, we are not gonna redo that. That was awesome. People are gonna love it. So if you get the audiobook, you'll hear a few tears behind the filter there.
Yes, perfect. I'm getting the audiobook, and I'm gonna play it when I drive down to Texas. Thank you guys so much. Love having you.
Thank you for having us.